All right, we are going to be doing for longtime fans of this channel who have read what Horky's written and listened to him, the face reveal. Horky, are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
There it is, coming up on the elevator. Welcome, Horky.
Nice to be here.
All right, we talked about this a bit on some of the other streams. Um, I forget his name. Somebody had tweeted, a game reviewer had said, just a reminder, you don't need to beat games to review them. Colin Moriarty of Colin's Last Stand, formerly of Kind of Funny Games, formerly of IGN, has appeared on the Joe Rogan Show and one of the most lucrative Patreon games media producers. Wanted to debate him and basically called out game reviewers who don't beat games and said that they're lazy. So I thought we could talk about it. And first off, let's define what is a game review and what do you expect? Horky, John.
I mean, pretty much it's I think it's an overloaded term, first of all, because I think like you're kind of getting at, there's a number of different purposes you're going to use a review for.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think in the most general sense, or at least in the most traditional sense, it's an in-depth critique of something that you have experienced.
Mm-hmm.
At the most basic level, at least that's what the fundamental aspect of being a review is.
Now, I would say a games review that traditionally you're going to find on like an IGN, a GameSpot, or whatever, I would not necessarily say it's an in-depth critique or a review. For me, a review is like Siskel and Ebert. No spoilers. Should you pay money for this media and who is it for? Whereas I would have a subcategory for like a long, in-depth critique review that I'm going to watch. That's like an hour-long video essay where I'm okay having spoilers there. So yeah, for me, a review is more like buyer's advice.
And I think that's just pretty demonstrative of exactly where there's an issue there.
Mm.
The fact that, I mean, different people review can be kind of different things, you know? Like, is it a buyer's guide? Is it something that's actually just like, I mean, I literally think of the word review as like seeing again, you know?
Right?
And like if you provide a review of something you ate at, you know, Arby's, whatever, um, you have to have consumed it and you know you're talking about it. I mean there's no spoilers I guess in fast food or whatever, but um, yeah, I mean I feel like you're kind of analyzing this stuff
Mm-hmm.
in that context at least. And I don't know, I guess it's just very divisive in anything else in like games and TV and music.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to finish an Arby's meal and to watch a movie. Once you get beyond that kind of stuff, like it's very common now for people to write a review of a TV series and they only watch 3 episodes and they do it a review in progress. I think what's happening right now is that there are a lot of game reviewers feel pressure to finish a game that could be 40 hours long because most games are coming out and game publishers feel like to get our value, we need to make it 40 hours and it needs to have maybe replayability or whatever. And there's not enough time to hit the embargo. So I think you can pass some blame around there. Number one, the publishers aren't giving you the games in time. They're not saying, here's a review copy, you got a whole month to play before the embargo. And on two, the game reviewers think if we don't get this out on the embargo, we're going to miss out because people are going to go to GameSpot because they put the review out. They're not going to go to IGN who waited. And I don't go to those sites anymore. I used to a lot. I really respected their opinions. And as you get older, I feel like I'd rather just experience the game for myself. I mean, I've been
Hmm.
burned a lot with like spoilers on reviews and just kind of generally people have way different tastes and stuff. Like if you're reviewing a fighting game and you are someone who loves fighting games, you don't really care what somebody who doesn't love fighting games the way you do has to say about it. But if you're somebody that is just kind of like a real casual person, like, should this be my first fighting game? Then I wouldn't mind a reviewer who's like, I don't play fighting games that much. So I think the reviews need to be really specific, but I guess that's not really answering the question of should you have to beat it? Do you have a definitive answer?
I mean, honestly, it's just like a review is literally someone's experience playing the game. And I think as long as you show a little bit of like responsibility and like in saying like as long as it's clear kind of how you engaged with the game, to
Hmm.
what extent, I think it's fine. I mean, you don't really. It's just an opinion, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to, and to say that it's right or wrong is kind of silly.
Hmm.
And I mean, let alone providing a score actually is also just kind of like a
Yeah.
crazy idea.
Yeah, I've haven't really been like, and I find that you can kind of guess what the numbers are going to be anyway. If it's a pretty polished game, it's going to get an 8 at least, and if it has a lot of bugs, it's going to get a 7, and if it's anywhere close to being good, it's going to be a 9 or something. And then for indie games, it's got to be really good, and it's going to get like a 9 or 10, or it's going to get like a 7 or a 6. And it's because if you're like breaking it down by like graphics, sound, when a game has this many resources thrown at it, it's going to have great sound design, and so it's going to all kind of equate like whatever equation they're using. I think the best thing you can really do is a game review site is in the business to get clicks, and
Hmm.
it's not really an art form, and they're not doing it for the art of it. So if you have to hit your embargo and the game came out 4 days before the embargo, then it makes sense to just put out a review in progress. And like you said, if you're just kind of expressing your experience and you're trying to give it, then as long as you're upfront about it, or you could make that the point of the review, like, well, I only had this much time and this is what I had. I mean, I just don't really think of reviews as all that kind of a gospel anyway.
Hmm.
And I think that reviewers should highlight and say, we only got this game 3 days ago, so what do you expect? Although that reminds me that Jeff Gertzman of Giant Bomb, one of the few guys left at Giant Bomb, reviewed Ocarina of Time over a weekend. And that's a pretty big game, and then gave it a perfect score. So you imagine the pressure of trying to beat a game like that with a bunch of puzzles, with probably no help, no internet, and trying to figure out where do I go to get to the Gorons. Because sometimes you can read reviews and you hear the language of it, like, oh, this part was really frustrating and
Hmm.
tedious. And I wonder how frustrating and tedious something would be if you weren't under like a time pressure.
Oh, and what about just like, I mean, there are games like Last of Us Part Two where
Mm.
there are dramatic shifts, or even like Resident Evil 3. There's like big shifts in, in what happens in the game where, like, if you reviewed leading up to that point, it would be very, very, very different. And I don't know. I mean, like, is it their responsibility to even reflect that in the review, or is, I mean, with a review that's used conventionally or in practice as like as a preview,
Hmm.
it's like, what's important? What's important to actually communicate? Like, really, you just need the bare bones. Anything beyond, like, any impressions of it that are sort of any level of analysis seem kind of pointless for that kind of utilization. But
Hmm.
in a critique, you want to make sure a lot of that kind of stuff gets covered.
Absolutely. I mean, for full on critiques, um, oh my God, I can't remember his name, but he does really long reviews. Shit, I can't remember his name.
Oh, I know. I think I know who you're
He used to
talking
work for
about.
Kotaku. He has
I
this thing
don't know the
called,
name, but I've heard of him.
damn, he's got glasses. He speaks Japanese. He used to work for PlayStation of Japan, and
The reviews are like like
7 hours
exhaustive to a
long.
degree that you couldn't
Yeah.
possibly imagine.
Yeah, his website is called, or his YouTube channel is called Action Button, and he will play a game like 7 times, or when he reviews Doom, he'll play every single thing of Doom. It's like,
A completionist level
yeah,
of reviewing, basically.
like there will never be a more completionist review, and I watch those like a movie and enjoy it because he's kind of reviewing the experience of playing Final Fantasy VII Remake 7 times and how it feels to play it, and that is where it kind of elevates to a level of art. But
Hmm.
I mean, there's also the point of like sometimes okay, so we've talked about a review as, say, buyer's advice, about being a encompassing review of it, like a critique, and then sometimes I think like just reviews are just like something fun to chat about.
Hmm.
In this, like, I like podcasts. I can listen to people talk about a game that they're kind of halfway through, and do it myself, and just like impressions on something. Games are big.
Right, right.
That is something to realize, is that they are one of the toughest mediums to get through.
Hmm. Yeah, 40, 60 hours for a lot of big name games.
and requires skill.
Mm-hmm.
Like anybody can sit down and watch TV. You might not understand everything, like the subtext, if it's a complex show or something, but there are probably some people that can't beat like a Dark Souls or a Bloodborne. I could not beat what's that one called? Neo.
Oh, yeah.
I could
I
not
mean,
beat
it
Neo.
does. It touches on well, I was actually thinking of that kind of when we originally were talking about this on Discord, and it's like it kind of touches a little bit on that whole like, does Dark Souls need a difficulty slider?
Right?
And I was just kind of thinking about some of that stuff, and it's like, well, I mean, should a reviewer be able to beat a game no matter what?
Right.
It's kind of an interesting
Well, I saw
relation.
somebody, I think maybe on Kotaku or somebody, they'd said they started playing Near Replicant on the easy setting with auto battle because it looks flashier and the auto battle can execute things they're never going to, like so many perfect
Hmm.
parries. They actually have access to more spells than you can assign to the buttons. So the auto battle can play better than you could humanly possibly play with the controls. And you talk to almost anyone who plays a Near game, Automata or Replicant, and it's like Kingdom Hearts. Like people love Kingdom Hearts, but they admit the story is kind of crazy. Near Replicant and Automata, they go, yeah, it's the battle is kind of bullshit, and you have to replay stuff, and it gets kind of tedious, but it's all with the payoff. So in a game like that, I could see someone flipping on the auto battle, and that would let them see and experience more of actually seeing that crazy story without being like, I just don't want to hit these like same enemies over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that gets very fatiguing like that, like, a roguelike, for instance.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you might not have the endurance to be able to actually finish the game, and it's less of an issue of your ability as much as it is just time at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. But and like Returnal, I was talking about this in the review I did with Matthew Hayes, where when I die a few times in Returnal, my personal energy of wanting to play it is just I need to stop and wait for my motivation to recharge, which is a terrible feeling.
Hmm.
I mean, the best game should make you feel like I'm going to give this one more try, one more turn that extends on.
Hmm.
Whereas that game, I feel like, even though I love so much about it, but all right. So I guess for me with reviewers, the ultimate verdict of should reviewers beat the game? Maybe if I was a kid and I was younger and still felt so reverential about reviews, I'd be like, absolutely. Now I feel like it's just your opinion, man. So as
Hmm.
long as you are honest, that's the part that really like don't try to pass off that you have seen the rest of this game. You need to just be totally upfront about it. But I really don't care. It's just kind of your perspective and opinion.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like, what are you trying to accomplish with the review in the first place? Like, if that's your audience, if they want a full review, then you're kind of like, well, now I do have to finish it. But if you're willing to, if you're able to shape that yourself, then just play it the way you want to do it. Write your review the way you want to write it.
Be you, man.